in this Instagram reel, he was talking about longevity. Actually, Funky. It's all coming. He's like, man, I asked my neighbor who's 103, and she looks like 60. How do you look so good? And she said, baby, I don't worry. Worry brings down the energy. That brings wrinkles. And I'm like, yo. But I was like, when I heard that, I said, damn, man, it's so wild, because I could see, like, even when I worked at Lifetime, I remember seeing people that were older that were like moving around, like, and their attitude and their energy was bubbly. Then I see people that were freaking dirty, like, walking around like Eeyore, like, hey, Paul, how you doing, Paul? Like, yo, bro.
Yeah.
Snap out of it, man. Like, damn, son.
Yeah, you're never going to reach your goals with that attitude.
That's right, man. That's how we do, see? What's up, everybody? Brian, you want to bring us in on the intro today, bro?
No, that's your thing, man. That's your thing. You got to prepare me, man. I'm a very simple man. If I don't have it structured and what to talk about, you're catching me off the cuff, man.
It's a wrap. You see how I was trying to get him? I was trying to get him off the cuff.
Make me look bad in front of our 26 subscribers.
Yo, man, by the time they see this, it may be close to 50.
I love it.
Or over 50. So listen, welcome everyone. Thank you for those that are coming back, to our subscribers. Thanks for joining. Thanks for following. Welcome to this More Than Black or White podcast. We are your hosts, Brian and Paul. I'm Paul. He's Brian. I'm Ebony. He's Ivory. Who you with? Stevie Wonder, Paul McCartney in the building. It was Stevie Wonder and Paul McCartney, because you know how I mess up the artist, right?
Yeah. Which one is which?
Yeah, well, yeah.
Like, really, man?
Yeah, like, really, Paul? Come on, son. Like, yo,
Paul
I thought
McCartney's Ivory.
Huh?
Paul McCartney's Ivory.
He's Ivory. Okay, got you. Keys on the piano.
He's on the piano.
So what's up, everybody? Listen, thank you all for watching, because Brian and I are getting feedback. Like, people are liking the knowledge, and this is why we got in this game, man, because it's very important for us to be able to share what we've learned over the years. We learn new things every time we do this podcast. I know I feel that way every time I do this podcast, Brian. And 100%. Then also we're looking to really share what we know with you all, so that now you can live your life in a higher fashion. You can live your life in a more aware way as you're working with whoever your healthcare providers are, whether it's your doctor, your naturopath, yourself, studies, whatever. So bless up to you, and thank you, and welcome back. The age-old question. The age-old question.
What is that, Paul? What is that?
Well, what's the key to a long life, man? What's the key to a long life? Brian, let me ask you, bro. How long, like, what age do you want to live until?
I want to live. It's not about a number for me. I want to live until, like, I want to be sharp. I don't want to have like aches and pains. That's why I work my ass off now. I do a lot of stuff for the brain. I take supplements. I'm working out 6-7 days a week. Just trying to eat clean food, drink clean water as much as I can. Try to live that 99-to-1 ratio. I gotta have that 1% partying in me every still. I don't know if I'll ever get that out of me. I'll be 100 years old. You'll still find me in a club every once in a while.
Brian be like, I love it.
As long as I'm having fun, man, and not too many health issues, and my brain is sharp. That's it, man. Once people have to start taking care of me, put the cord, man. I'll see you in the next incarnation.
Yeah, dude, I'm right there with you. And Brian, thank you for that, man, because you bring up a really great point, right? Because, like, asking that question, people could be like, I know for me, I'm like, I want to get to 108. But at the same time, do I want to be a 108 where I'm like lying in the bed and somebody's wiping up my doo-doo and, like, cleaning up my diaper and stuff? Absolutely not. Like, I want to be able to move around. So I think that's the key piece. Like, as we're talking about, as we start getting into this, I want you all, as you're watching, to think about, like, what's longevity? Like, what's longevity to you, right? Like, what does that mean for you? What's long life mean to you? Is it like the duration? Is it the quality? Because like some people could live till 60 and live the best life ever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like some people could live to 100 and something
Hmm.
and live the and live a crappy life, right? George, how was like you know who just came to mind? George Burns. How old was George Burns? I think he died at 99, right?
Well, he was on the whiskey and cigar diet. That
Yeah,
guy had
bro.
the genetics of a like Superman. That guy drank
Dude,
whiskey and smoked cigars every day. Yeah, I don't know when he died. It was definitely after 100, man.
bro.
That guy, man.
Listen, I don't know how many people can live like
Yeah,
that and live as long as he did. Like he must have had some good. He must have had some good stuff, man.
yeah, he is in
Whatever
good
he was
genetics.
doing.
Yeah,
Well, listen, like, so what we want to do today, because this is a topic, and like Brian and I can joke around about this for as long as we, for this whole podcast, and that's what we were more than that, right? So we want to look at some of the science behind longevity, and when we were going over this as far as what to discuss, we felt that it's important to talk about the science of aging, right, and what that is, and then provide some context or some opportunities to share like what are some things that you could do to start to get on that path to a to longevity and what that can mean for you. So B, like how would you, well, first of all, how would you define aging, bro?
yeah. So first of all, I want to kind of say, like, when we do these podcasts, like when Paul and I would come up with these ideas, like I'm gung ho. Like I know a lot about like longevity, but I want to just the years I've been studying in the holistic plane, in the holistic field. But then I started diving into like, all right, what's some new YouTube videos? What's some new research out there? So I started diving into it, and I found this YouTube video with Andrew Huberman and David Sinclair. And David Sinclair, Andrew Huberman is a neuroscientist out of Stanford. I follow him. I think the guy's amazing. And then David Sinclair, he's like the head guy at Harvard Medical University that works specifically on longevity. So I dove into this podcast and I was like, dude, this is sick. Like everything else, I was like, I had a bunch of bookmarks down, but a lot of stuff we're going to be talking about today is regurgitated from Andrew Huberman and David Sinclair. So I want to give them props up, So like we could keep a link in our video on the bottom if you want to kind of go through the whole thing. It's like a 3 hour interview, but it's
Yeah.
awesome. And I applied a lot of this to my life. But yes, what was the question? One more time, Paul?
So like how would you define aging? Like based on like what
Mm,
you like well actually I'm gonna ask you this, like based
yeah,
on what you saw and what you took
yeah,
in from that interview and
yeah.
also from your experience, how would you define aging, bro?
Yeah. So this I found somewhere else was like for a disease. First of all, a disease to be
Right.
labeled as a disease has to be less than 50% of the population, which I thought was interesting. So aging, by definition, is a deterioration in health and sickness, and you can die from it. So to me, that sounds like a disease to me, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
get
it
old,
does.
get
Yeah.
old, you have a disease, and you die, and that sounds like a disease. But for some reason, that 50% is like an arbitrary kind of cutoff, and aging gets put into a different bucket. So that's the definition of aging according to David Sinclair, which I
And it's
think,
a deterioration of what again, Brian? It's a
yeah,
deterioration of
deterioration in health and sickness, and basically something that you can die from. Basically, sounds like every other disease out there, right? You know,
yeah, yeah.
So it doesn't really make too much sense, but that's the way our medical community has it set up.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
we're ignoring the effects of aging. So aging is 80 to 90% the cause of heart disease, Alzheimer's, and a bunch of other diseases. So if you didn't get old and our body stayed youthful, we would not get these diseases.
Hmm.
And it's interesting. So in labs, when you turn back the clock on tissues, the diseases go away. So that makes the aging is the problem. But the problem also is our medical establishments over the last 200 years, they just stick band-aids on diseases that have already occurred because of aging. And by the time people go to these, we talked about this, remember, in the cognitive episode, when people already go to the doctors with Alzheimer's, there's nothing they can do about it,
Right.
because you already had that. So our medical community kind of sticks band-aids over it. So the goal is to actually slow down aging so you don't get these diseases. And when they do occur, just don't stick a band-aid on it. Try to reverse the age of the body.
Hmm.
So that's,
Reduce the age of
yeah,
the body.
reverse the age of the
Uh,
body. Yeah.
so it's interesting, man, because like as I'm hearing you, I'm thinking about like I remember reading about or actually learning about these things called telomeres.
Hmm.
so for people that are like, what is he speaking English? Yes, I am.
Hmm.
And telomeres, basically, I'm Brian. Help me out with this, like, because telomere is like the at the end of our DNA strain. I'm
Yeah, I think from what I remember, I don't know exactly where it was, but it was. I think it was somewhere in the DNA. Would basically tells you your biological age.
Yeah, okay.
You know
That's
what I
what it
mean?
was. So it's interesting because like when I first learned about this was like several years ago. I think I was like on some isogenics. I was at no,
Mhm.
it actually was longer than that. Damn, it was like going on almost 8 years ago. I was at an isogenics convention and they were talking about the telomeres and
Mm.
how like they contribute to our aging because as they shorten, we're it's like basically our age, like we live less, right? And then like as
Yeah.
we lengthen them we live longer. And it came up the other day. I was listening to this guy Billy Carson. Excuse me, for people that don't understand like or have yet to hear that name, he like talks a lot about like ancient wisdom and things like this. So he talked about there's evidence in what he likes to talk about the emerald tablets, like the ancient wisdom and what have you, about that there was a modification to our telomeres, to our DNA, to our existence. Because I always thought it was funky that I remember growing up as as Jehovah's Witness, hearing about Methuselah, and this cat lived to be 900 years old. Like people in the Bible were living to hundreds and hundreds of years old. And I thought it was fascinating that all of a sudden, like, it's very difficult for us to live like into our 90s, man. Like that's a rare thing to live into your 90s. It's like, oh my god, it's like the freaking holy grail, and you
Yeah.
still have your thought capacity about you, bro. It's
Yeah.
freaking amazing. It's
Hmm.
wild, bro.
Yeah. I think the average age right now is like 76. You
Yeah, I
know,
mean, like that's
something like
relative.
that. And imagine, and the reality is like, uh, there was a study that came out a few years ago. The morbidity rate. So basically, what the morbidity rate is if there was no drugs to keep you alive, the
Yeah,
average age would be around 30. Can
bro.
you imagine
Oh,
that? Can you
so
imagine that?
so let's get into this, man, because like when we look at like our history, like I'm talking, like I went from 900 and hundreds of years old to like, brother, like
Oh,
what?
we're getting worse.
We're getting worse. Like,
We're getting smarter. We have more technology advances. Our equipment's crazy. But we're destroying our planet.
it
And
makes
people are just like, we told this before, like, social programming, media, they're making you dumber and just like, you
huh.
know, yeah, we're a complete shit show. Like
Yeah,
our
it's weird.
ancestors should look back on. They're looking back on right now. They're like shaking their head and be like, man,
They're like,
how can a civilization be so smart and so stupid at the
so
same time?
stupid. I think that's a key though, because like we get easily swayed, right? And
Yeah,
I bring this up because like when we were in the pregame and you were talking about how the perception of long life has shifted over the years, right? So
yeah,
like, like what in the Great Depression, I think the the age range was I think like 50s or 60s or something like that. Because as you mentioned, there were no medications to keep us alive,
yeah.
right? It was just like, and the science was far less
Mhm.
strategic as it is right now and technical.
Yeah,
Yet as we've gotten older and now as we have more medications, even the messaging around what contributes to long age, like I remember hearing you say about like the free radicals and then like
yeah.
the message changed. Like, so
Mhm.
how have you seen, or like what are the trends or the like the key pieces that you see have shifted over the years in relation to like what aging is and like and how we live longer, bro?
Yeah, so, like, in, like, the '80s, early '90s, mid-90s, like, there was the whole big craze about it. I remember taking, like, classes in high school, and even then, they were talking about, like, free radicals, versus, antioxidants. You don't want free radicals in the body. You want to overload them with antioxidants so the free radicals die. It was basically like this whole, like, combative battle between free radicals and antioxidants. But it
Yeah.
was interesting, the late '90s, that got kind of thrown out the window. And they realized that free radicals don't do much. And honestly, like, I forgot where I learned this from. I was at a conference, and they were showing evidence that if you put too much antioxidants in the body, it'll actually be more harmful than actually have an overload of free radicals, which was interesting. So it kind of blows up that whole theory. But in the late '90s, a lot of these scientists, they started coming up and figuring out there was a certain set of genes called sirtuins, and these are what they call longevity genes. and this caused like a whole ruckus in the medical field. But actually, in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, all these scientists kind of came together and they agreed that the sirtuins were basically the main thing that shut down or kept the longevity genes alive. I'm sorry, the sirtuins were the longevity genes, and this is what caused the aging to stay at still and didn't increase on a biological level.
Hmm.
That kind of makes
So
sense.
yeah, yeah. So and say the word again. It's the sero what?
Sirtuins, yeah,
Serotonin. So the
are
serotonin
longevity genes.
is the longevity gene.
Hmm.
So like I'm curious as to like how did they? I'm just like my mind is like how did they figure out that that was the longevity gene? Like was that like because that's fascinating, right? Because like
Yeah,
like because science is beautiful, right? Like because science will have like a hypothesis and then they can set up these different measures to figure out okay, like let's have these different groups and figure out which like give them these conditions and what how do they get how are we figuring out like this gene. I think
yeah.
it's fascinating that they're able to do this, man, because that this is I think part of the science of
Hmm.
all right, how do we find this gene and then how we contribute it or give it to people or enhance it in people that are living right now.
Yeah. So the sirtuins was basically they came up with like 8 or 9 hallmarks, and sirtuins are one of them. But the one hallmark that is way larger than all the others is that's the information in the cell called the epigenome. So we talked about this a little bit in the past. So epigenome marks the genes and tells the genes what to do, where to do, and when to do it. So,
Mm, it's
yep.
the
So
commander.
yeah. So actually, I read a book a while ago called The Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton, and he actually
Oh, dude,
dude,
wow.
that's the man right there. But in
Yeah,
the 70s, he actually where everyone was like, "Oh, genes, you have no control. If you have these genes, you're screwed," and blah blah blah. And he actually figured out and came up with the epigenetics. I think he was the main guy that came up with epigenetics, was basically says, "Hey, listen, it's not your genes. Your genes play like a 3% role in your body. It's the epigenetics that actually so your environment. Epigenetics. Think of it as like your environment. So
right.
like your genes are like a gun, and the epigenetics are what pulls the trigger. Your environment pulls the trigger, so to speak. So your environment dictates what your genes do.
Yeah.
So on a mental, emotional, physical, environmental, whatever level you want to kind of talk about.
This is so funky, man,
Yeah.
because like as you're talking about this, I'm thinking of my jeans, right? I'm
Mhm.
saying, I mean, like, well, yeah, I got some fresh old navy jeans on right now, but I'm talking about like my actual
Yeah.
jeans and thinking about my history, my family history of heart disease. And I think you and I have had several conversations about this, about like it's basically as soon as I say, well, I have a history of heart disease,
Yeah.
I'm basically putting a commandment in my cells, like you have heart disease.
Yeah.
So I'm activating these genes in a certain way rather than
Sure.
deactivating them to create more longevity in life. And
Yeah. And
again,
it's
like,
yeah.
yeah, good, good.
Like it's all like remember we talked about like your emotions, the words, your thoughts. That's the first thing you want to get rid of. If
Yeah,
you're
man.
if you think you have these genes that are going to make you sick, I tell you what, they're gonna make you sick. There's no other way around it. Words, thoughts, that's all information. That's all you're
Listen,
programming your body.
it's so true, man. And you know, Brian, as you're saying this, I'm doing my best to recall the gentleman that did the experiment on cells and water, or like words.
Emoto, right?
Yeah.
Emoto?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Because listen, we're made up of mostly water, right?
Hmm.
So even if you look at a cell like the overall, like the space, there's a ton of space in our cells.
Hmm.
So what is that space? And I truly believe it's about what are we feeling in that space. And part of it is what you said, B. Like what's our environment? What are our thoughts? What are our actions? What are our emotions? What's our spirit? And I think it's very important for people like, while there's the science to this, there's also the point of it's about the environment. And you mentioned that, right? With the
Hmm.
epigenetics. It's like, what's
Yeah.
the environment that we're raising? Because look, if you look at like they talk about how trauma and I'm like trauma's getting all the play. I'm just talking
Mhm.
like anything in your familial line, right? So like, um, I don't know, like teaching, right? My grandfather loved to teach. He was a big time teacher. My dad loved to read. I love to teach. You
Mhm.
know, maybe my kids love to teach. Like that is a trait, a part of my genome, right? Like
Yeah.
my brain and my processing units and all these things
Mhm.
provide me with the capacity to be a teacher, to be an
Yeah.
effective teacher, because that's lived in my line. Aside from like the trauma stuff, like everybody
Yeah.
talks about that, but let's talk about the good shit, right? Or
Sure.
the useful shit. So
Yeah.
now if I go about and I'm like, hey, all of a sudden I go teach a class and then I'm like, I like teaching. Now I'm activating
Yeah.
those specific things by me doing something outside or by me putting myself in a different environment. Now I've activated certain genes. And I think that that's a key piece to longevity as well. And as far as aging, I think that when we get older, and a shout out to my man Mike Schmidt, he's got a program called the Trajectory Program where he works with
Mhm.
people 55 and older. And he's all into Qigong and he talks about like the different cycles or the stages of our life. And there's, I think it's the middle stages we get older where we start to really like, not hard, free of being hardened, but like we're more static and like more thoughtful and like, I, I could, you know, he could explain stuff better than I can,
Mhm.
but the thing that comes to mind is he talked about a lot of times when people go through life, there's this thought in the mind like, okay, I'm gonna work all my life, and then when I'm 65 or what have you, I'm gonna retire.
Mhm.
And the retire piece is like this transition of like, okay, I'm not working. When in reality, when the people when and there's studies out here, like when people just stop working or stop doing anything, like eventually they do die.
Yeah.
Compared to other people that like go, they're retired, but like, yo, you know what, man, I'm gonna be a sailor now.
Yeah.
Like I'm just starting this business. I'm gonna be a consultant. They're living longer because now it's like, hey, I'm doing something and putting myself in different environments to have that longevity in life and in legacy too, really.
Yeah. If you don't have a purpose, you don't have a dream, or you don't have a goal, you're dead. You know,
It's a wrap.
you're meant to flow. You're meant to try new things. You're meant to experience new things.
Right.
And if you don't, you stop that flow, and all of a sudden, a river turns into a mossy pond. You know,
Yeah,
then it's like
yeah,
then
yeah.
the spirits are like, okay, enough of you. You're wasting your time. Let's get out of here.
It's a
You have to have a purpose. You have to have a purpose. The problem is, and I was watching a Paul Check video the other day, and I fucking love that guy. That's my male crush right there. And,
there you go,
he was
bro.
talking about why is change so hard, and he's like, think about the law of facilitation. So those who don't know the law of facilitation, basically in layman's terms, is like, if you never tied your shoelace before, first time you do it, you have to really concentrate on it. But
Yep.
every time you do it after that, it gets easier and easier and easier until you're able to put a blindfold on you and kind of do it. So if you're going through life and you're the same person, the same attitude towards something, or you just like want to keep doing the same thing over and over again, it takes a lot of energy to make a change. It takes a lot of energy. So if you're have shitty thoughts, or eating McDonald's all day, or getting 6 hours of sleep, and working your ass off and not getting any rest, it's almost impossible for you to change it,
Yeah.
because you're not going to have a goal. He's like you're not gonna hit those goals. That's why he's like, before he sits down with anybody, he's like, what's your goal? If you don't have a dream, you don't have a goal, you're never gonna make that change, because what's motivating you? You know? So
Dude, man, it's very, yeah, it's very interesting, man, because as you're talking, I'm thinking about our environment and that goal oriented piece
mhm,
and how much like if someone fails to have an end game or a goal or a mission,
mhm,
then they can be easily distracted, which creates this environment of dis-ease and inflammation and toxicity,
yeah.
which in turn is going to damage our cells. Like this is what's creating this part of aging. Like what was I listening to? I was listening to this guy, Garen, I think his name is Garen Jones. And he was, it's, oh my God, this coach is so wild. So he was talking in this Instagram reel. He was talking about longevity, actually. Funky.
Mm,
It's all coming. He's like, man, I asked my neighbor who's 103, and she looks like 60. How do you look so good? And she said, baby, I don't worry. Worry brings down the energy. That brings wrinkles. And I'm like, yo,
Mm-hmm.
wow, man. Like, that is some
Yeah.
freaking bar. Those are bars right there. For people like, what do you mean bars? That means it's like a statement that's worthy of repeating or remembering, right? Bars. So someone says, hey, those are bars. That's what basically that means. But I was like, when I heard that, I said, damn, man, it's so wild because I could see, like, even when I worked at Lifetime, I remember seeing people that were older that were like moving around, like, and their
Mm-hmm.
attitude and their energy
Oh
was
yeah.
bubbly. Then I
Mm-hmm.
see people that were freaking dirty, like, look, walking around like Eeyore, like, hey,
Yeah.
Paul, how you doing, Paul?
Mhm.
Like, yo, bro,
Yeah.
snap out of it, man. Like,
You-
damn,
you-
son.
yeah. You're never gonna reach your goals with that attitude.
No, man, no. So it's like, so now we got the science piece, right? As far as aging and longevity, like I was, because I'm a word geek.
Yeah.
So I was looking up like longevity, long life. Yeah, long existence or service. That's the piece that got me. Long existence or service, because when I think about longevity, sure, it's about aging, and I also look at this as, what can we do to contribute to our being always being of service,
Mm.
the legacy, the, like, what's like the mark, right? And I thought that really played into a lot about this conversation of longevity, because we're gonna start to transition on what we can do to have that longevity. And I think it's coming back into what Paul Check was saying, like, hey, if you don't have a goal or purpose, man, it's you're ice skating uphill.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that goal or purpose is part of the key of longevity, man.
Hundred
It's like,
percent.
because like,
Yeah.
dude, any goal or purpose worth its weight in gold, it may outlive you. It may outlive me. I'll speak for myself. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, B?
I remember him saying one time, he's like, when I first met him, I did like a 7 day seminar with him,
Mm-hmm.
and he was first thing he talked about is like, you got to have a goal, you got to have it. It's like when you have a goal, you don't have time for a crisis. Like, he's like,
Mm,
I haven't been sick in 27 years. Like I'm too busy. He's like, people that have crises don't have goals, because you just have so when you have that goal that like you're just amped up, you got so much energy in your body, no diseases can live in that, you know?
nope.
Like you need to like and that's a trick. You have to really like people don't know what they want. We've had this conversation. I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
what do you want out of life?" "I want to be happy." What the fuck does that mean? Like,
Right. Right.
like the whole restaurant analogy, right? You go to a restaurant and be like, "Oh, I'm hungry." And the waiter's like, "Well, what do you want to eat?" "I'm hungry."
Yeah. What do you want? We got a whole menu,
Yeah,
son.
we got a whole menu. Like, what do you want? So being crystal clear with your goals, but I think it's tough because you have to, you know, I'm I mean, I love what I do right now, but just something I want to do on a bigger level. And this is what kind of got me into YouTube. Like I wanted to like and I've been on the reason I got into YouTube for like I told you this, Paul, but like a lot of the members out there, I've been on a lot of plant medicine journeys over the last couple years
Yeah.
and probably done like 5 or 6 ayahuasca retreats. And I think all of them except for one, I think maybe it was the first one, they had me doing talking to a larger audience.
Yeah.
So like after the first one, I was like, yeah, it's probably just a kind of fluke thing, kind of like that. But or like second one, the third one, the fourth one, it got more intense. So
Yeah.
like I'm listening to what the universe is kind of telling me what to do, and we talked about this. Like I love doing this. I would do this for the next 30 years. I don't care if I make a single penny on it. It's not about that for me. This is like something I want to give back, and
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
what the question was, but I just went off on a tangent. But
It's all good.
yeah,
Yo, what it's about? It's about, you started getting into like the facilitation. We're talking about goal, and
yeah,
like then we started talking about like how goal is the service, right? Like,
yeah,
the goal, a part of the goal is service. Then you started talking about Paul Check. And it was
mm,
like, look, man,
yeah,
if you don't have a goal, then you're gonna have a crisis.
yeah,
And that's when you
you
started
know,
talking about, like, going to plant medicine retreats. It was like, damn. I like, just to take a quick pause for a second. I'm a big believer in people having an altered experience to tap into goal and mission. I really believe that. Now there's more studies that support that, whether it's like through ayahuasca, psilocybin trips. Listen, also too, like, because a lot of this stuff, people, I just want to put my disclaimer out there, is like a woo-woo cat.
Mhm.
Is that like, these practices that are now popular were foreign and vilified
Oh yeah.
as little as 4 years ago. Right. So like, you know what I'm saying? So now all of a sudden everybody's doing it, and it's great and everything. At the same time, be very cautious and discerning of who you're doing this with, because Brian just told you will see things that will get you in alignment with your purpose, right?
Mhm.
Which is something that I think is like, as we start to transition into like, hey, what are some things people could do? I think it's important for us to get to those points, or have those spaces, whether it's like you're in deep meditation, you're in shaman journey, you're on a plant medicine trip. I'm detached from wherever it is.
Yeah.
I just think it's important for every person to be able to do that, to come back to a center which will help them with their longevity, whether it's in age and legacy, whatever that is for you.
Yeah.
So B, let me ask you a question, bro.
What's up?
What are some things? Because I heard you say like you've had some supplements that you've worked with for longevity. But what would you say are some things that you take and things that you do to support your longevity, man?
First thing I do every morning, I meditate. That goes without question. Like I do like 10 minutes of I try to cultivate as much gratitude as I can. That just like amps me up, man. Like my whole
Mm,
body is like just vibrating. And I do a lot of visualization work. A
I was
lot of
about to say, okay,
visualization. A
yeah,
lot of visualization work. So like, it could be about like what money I want to attract in my life. Where do I like, like I'm moving now soon in a couple weeks. So I'm like, where I want to be, what kind of place, what kind of environment do I want to be in? I visualize things.
yeah,
And not only like do I just try to visualize things, I also try to feel it like I already have it. Um, to me, that's for me just visualization and meditation in the morning. That's huge. Um, as far as supplements go, resveratrol is by far the best thing you can do out there. That's the wine molecule, right? So
yep.
before anybody asks, oh, can I just drink wine? You would literally
No,
need about 200 glasses of wine to get that. you know. And if you want to try that, just record it for us and send it in, because I would love to see
I love to see that shit. And you ain't living long. Shit.
So me, Paul and I need a laugh. So down, send that video into us, and we'll give you a thumbs up.
We'll do our
Um,
best. Promise we'll be free of posting that.
yeah.
Promise is here.
Yeah. So like another supplement you can do is something called NAD. So NAD, it's a small molecule in the body is needed to live. Like if you didn't have NAD in your body, you would just basically die. So it helps with over 400 different chemical reactions. It levels decline, NAD levels decline as you get fatter and older. So this is by a majority of our population. So your body doesn't make enough of it, and your body chews it up as you get older. So NAD is important to keep those sirtuin levels at a youthful level and keep them high. So we talk about, again, sirtuin levels are longevity genes. So the more
Mm,
NAD you have in your body, the higher your sirtuin levels. I shouldn't say the higher your sirtuin levels, the more your sirtuin levels will stay on and active. So if you take
okay.
enough resveratrol but don't have enough fuel, and you're basically accelerating the car. So resveratrol is basically like the gas pedal. You're flooring the car in park, and then NAD is basically the gas that lets the car go from there. So you need both of them. Does that make
Got
sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So wait, so the resveratrol is like, because you said is the gas, so it's like,
Yeah.
and then
Resveratrol.
NAD is the what?
Sorry, resveratrol is the acceleration.
Okay,
NAD is the gas.
to get it going.
Get it going. Yeah. So I think
Ah,
that was a bad analogy I gave before, but yeah, I think it was
okay.
like you know, gas in your car versus the acceleration.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. And so, okay, so meditation. So you do meditation and visualization, and
Hmm.
then resveratrol and NAD.
Yeah. Those
Okay.
are those are kind of my go-to supplements.
Hmm.
There's a precursor to NAD called NMN. NMN. So basically, your body uses this to make the NAD molecule. So if you take for about 2 weeks, you double up your NAD levels in your blood really quick. So a good dosage of NMN is in the morning.
Okay.
1 gram of resveratrol in the morning, and your
Is that
NAD
powder or liquid form?
powder you can take it in a capsule form.
Okay.
Yep. And just for example, your NAD, take that in the morning because it naturally goes up in the morning. Your body naturally just has it going up in the morning. So
Okay.
NAD controls your circadian rhythm as well too.
Sweet. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So something I take every day is sea moss.
Hmm.
I'm a big sea moss fan. So sea moss has 92 of the 108 essential vitamins and minerals. It's a seaweed that grows in the Caribbean. Grow like that they find in the Caribbean. Again, it's one of these things now that's like, oh, everybody got sea
Mhm.
moss.
Yeah.
Like, but
Do you
you
have
know,
an allergy?
yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I mean, I guess
Okay.
you could say like I'm a big fan of like the sea moss and spirulina. Like,
Mm.
my parents, my lineage is Caribbean, so sea moss and bladderwhack and ashwagandha roots. So like,
Mm.
that was a lot of the stuff that I grew up on. Like my grandma was very big on that. My mom, not so much, even though she knew the technology behind it.
Mm.
So for me, I have sea moss with my mushroom coffee, or like after I hit the class, I'll come back, have a protein shake with the sea moss in it, like coconut milk. I am on like coconut and goat milk. I'll go back and forth.
There you go.
And so I like the sea moss, even though it's like it doesn't seem like it's doing much. I do feel different when I have it versus like weeks or like a day, like week, probably like a week, and I could really feel like, oh God, I'm not feeling like I feel off. Helps me with digestion, helps my skin, makes sure I stay hydrated. So that's what I take every day, the sea moss. And also do my best to cut back on sugar, even though me and sugar, I love me some sugar, boy. Ooh,
Everyone loves it.
child.
It's
Ooh, man. Even though I've cut back on it tremendously, I do have a love for it. And it's like also
Mm.
sugars and everything.
Yeah.
Another thing for me I do is my sun salutations every morning. So it's either if I fail to do it in the morning, I'm doing it at night, because like my whole main intention is to move my body. Okay. Because Brian mentioned it before, one of the things for me, and I think it's like I really kicked this in like after going through hip surgery and then like basically having a new life. It's like I have a different appreciation for my joints. I have a different appreciation for my body and being able to do certain things and really in tune to it. So it's like I want to be able to use my body for as long as I possibly can. So being able to move all my joints, being able to like feel like, oh, where's my back today? Like, oh, just experience the soreness. And I'm now getting into walking more, because like I think there's that space like while Monday, Wednesday, Friday I'm like pushing myself in a class, like I like those other days to just like go get a walk, do some calisthenics, some animal flow, pull-ups, things like this, because I think it's very key, for me, and something that I'm finding a lot of these I was like I've told you, I read this book called Ikigai, which
Hmm.
I think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Yeah. You got me
But it's
reading that. I read that too. It was good.
Dude, it was a
Yeah.
great book, man. Like
Good.
a lot of lessons and gems from
Mhm.
these people that like they call them centenarians, and it's people more refer to it as the blue zones.
Mhm.
And I think it's huge, because these people that are living into their hundreds, like they're still able bodied. It's not like they're like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna change my van, please, and I
Yeah.
like it's like they're actually like full of life. They're gardening, they're squatting. Like
Mhm.
I was watching this Netflix special. Like this dude is in crossed legs and he's picking himself up on his fingertips. I'm like,
Yeah.
this dude's 106.
Yeah.
He's 106.
Yeah.
What?
You
So
can't get professional athletes to do that, you know?
bruh,
Yeah.
bruh. And again, right? Like this is what I love appreciate about this. Like they've created this environment of movement and activity and connecting to the body. And I think that for me, also one of the things, like I took your suggestions, I started having lessons every day of Spanish. So
Hmm.
like, as I'm visioning like myself teaching in Costa Rica
Yeah.
and Dominican Republic and Portugal and Spain and shit, I'm like, I gotta speak the language.
Yeah.
So I'm like, that's helping my mind. So it's like I'm stretching my mind
So,
and also I've been doing I started this 3 days ago. Every morning I write down 5 ideas. That's an Earl Nightingale thing about like really thinking things through as far as like where I want to be, what are the ideas to get there. Again, I'm looking at longevity. Like I want to have my mental capacity as well as my physical capacity, because like that episode that we did about about
cognitive decline, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
cognitive decline, man. That junk was like, yo, I was editing and I was like, damn, man. Like, wow, where are my keys again? But
Yeah.
like, it's just like, you know what I'm saying, bro?
It's
Like,
funny because I talk to somebody at the gym every day, and somebody's like, "Who was that?" I'm like, "That's holy shit!" He's like, "No!"
yeah, like,
Like I told him every
no,
day,
man.
like,
Yeah,
"Man, I'm going down. I'm going down. They need bigger goals." I'm
like,
so
oh
bad with
shit,
names, though, man. God, I'm horrible.
bro. I
Yeah,
listen. I have to. That's always been a thing of mine. I've when it comes to names, I have to figure out a way to remember a person's name.
yeah,
Like right after I talk to him, it's like so I'll
mhm,
probably like if I'm meeting you and like and
mhm,
you hear me say your name like all right
yeah,
Joe
mhm,
Jim you're thinking
yeah,
like what the bruh you
mhm,
said my name 7 times in the last 2 minutes. This is why it's
yeah,
just like to train myself so I can
yeah,
remember your name. But listen, man, I think it's so I just want to highlight B. I want to highlight a couple of things from the Ikigai piece.
mhm.
And then we'll start to wrap up.
Yeah. I want to
And
add in one more thing after you're done with
yeah,
this.
yeah,
Yeah,
you want to add it now?
yeah. Let's do it now. So one of the things I got from David Sinclair, which was I think is probably the most important thing for longevity, was it was interesting. They did an experiment with over 10,000 mice. So we're going to be talking about a little bit about fasting here. And they gave them all different combinations of fats, carbohydrates, protein, and also had a separate group that ate as much as they wanted to all day, and another group that were only allowed to eat for 1 hour. But it turned out they ate the same amount of calories in that 1 hour than the group that ate all day. And it turned out that it didn't matter what diet you gave them, what macronutrient proportions you gave them. It was only the group that ate within that 1 hour window that lived dramatically longer. It was like 35% longer. So basically the conclusion is it's not really as important what you eat, but kind of when you eat during the day. And what they thought it was, where they figured it out, was you have something called the autophagy system, which digests old and misfolded proteins in the body. And there's a natural cleansing that happens when you're hungry. And where you have a deep cleanse called the chaperone mediated autophagy system, which kicks in 2 to 3 days after fasting. So if you fast for like 2 or 3 days, this system kind of kicks in. And this really gets like rid of all like the deep misfolded proteins and all these uh, crazy toxins that are in your body. So I gave this analogy in the past. So think of somebody's like walks in on your carpet with muddy shoes and they leave chunks of dirt behind. A fasting would be like basically taking the vacuum over the carpet and getting rid of those clumps. But now you have all those stains on the carpet, even if you're after you're done vacuuming.
Yeah.
The chaperone mediated autophagy system is basically bringing in a carpet cleaner and scrubbing that out so your carpet's clean again. And that's usually what happens after the second or third day. So, what David Sinclair does, he fasts every day, and then once a month, he'll fast for 2 to 3 days, and it'll just keep his body super detoxified. So, I
So
thought
wait,
that was interesting.
so when you say he fasts every day, so like it's like his intermittent fast,
Yeah,
like so his
intermittent
fast.
fasting. So intermittent fasting. So either skip breakfast or skip dinner. Anything that's kind of tied to your kind of sleep. So if you go to sleep at 8 o'clock and you want to skip breakfast, don't have breakfast until about like 11 or 12 o'clock. If you want to skip your dinner, don't eat anything after say 4 or 5 o'clock. So either skip one of those two meals. That's what he means by fasting. It's like intermittent fasting.
Right.
Yeah. And then every month or every 6 weeks, he would do a 2 to 3 day fasting where he would do like electrolytes, maybe some a little bit of amino acids in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was very interesting. You saw it was wild. He was saying like an average mice lives about maybe from about 18 months. And when you had these mice do it, some were living up to like 3.5 years old, these mice. He's like, it was crazy. It just kind of turned back the biological clock or the Horvath clock, which is the same thing on your cells. So it not only prevented the aging, it reversed the aging, which I thought was pretty wild.
Fresh, man.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Thank you for that. I'm gonna watch that. I'm gonna watch that video, bro, because
Yeah.
like I am like seeking. I fasted the whole day on Saturday. I just didn't want to. I just like my body was just like stop
Hmm.
eating, and like I came back. I was gonna go the whole weekend, and my son reached out. He wanted to get time in, so we went and had pancakes. And I was like, shoot, man. And my body's calling for me to fast for a little while. And like really clear some stuff up. So
Hmm.
I'm gonna watch that and thank you for that.
Yeah, man.
Uh Before we wrap up, I want to highlight a couple things that came from the Ikigai book. Highly recommended here. They have yet to pay us for endorsement, and this is it.
Checks are
Um,
coming in the mail.
yeah, checks it. Hey, listen, man, listen. If you want to just listen, it's more than black and white podcast. Yep. Anyway, listen, some things that they mention in here that I want to share that I think are really helpful, especially when it comes to longevity. Be free of worry. Paul, that's impossible. Is it? What is really something to worry about? Right? Like, so be free of worry, and like, to really be practical about this is first step is, what are your worries? Then, are they worries really? Are they worries really? Right?
To
Like,
kind of piggyback off that,
yeah.
if you haven't watched the Power of the Heart
Oh,
podcast, this will help you out with this.
bruh, I'm telling you, bruh, that's one of
Yeah.
those podcasts. Like, I have a set of podcasts in my YouTube thing that I save that I go back and listen to.
Mhm.
I saved that podcast to that. Like, yeah, I know it's ours, and I
Yeah.
don't give a crap. I'm listening to it anyway because it's gems.
Man, these guys are so smart. Oh wait, that's us.
That's us. Oh, yeah, yeah. So, but bro, that podcast, man. As far as like finding that, so much goodness in that, man.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, what are your worries, and are they worries really? Cultivate good habits. You heard from Brian and I that there's certain things that we're doing right now where it's like Brian talks about the meditation, the visualization, also some of the supplementation that he's taking. For me, it's the sun salutations. For me, it's also the sea moss. So cultivate good habits. Do they have to specifically be the habits that Brian and I are doing? Absolutely not. They can be things that are conducive to you and your health and happiness. Things that either help you get connected to your body, things that help you get connected to your mind, things that help you get connected to your heart, or things that help you get connected to your purpose. Any one of those things, like, start to cultivate good habits around doing that on a regular basis. Nurture friendships, aka get human connection, god damn it. And listen, it could be you getting some buns from your spouse, man. I don't know. Or it could be like going out and having some coffee. Look, hey, going out having some coffee tea, having a conversation, because I'm telling you, one of the things that may kill us faster is that we isolate. And I'm speaking to men specifically because men have a tendency to isolate, like, oh, I'm gonna sit in my cave. I'm speaking from experience here, man. And it's helpful for us to have the human connection because it's important for our health and longevity. Live an unhurried life. If you're living in New Jersey, you're probably like, Paul, kick your rocks, bruv. And it's still possible. All right. Live an unhurried life. If you find that you're rushing, or you find that you're multitasking, you're telling yourself that lie, like, I'm a good multitasker, you're full of shit because you're not focusing. You can only focus on one thing at a time. So if you're like here and here and here and here, you're digging a whole bunch of shallow holes, son and woman. Yo, look, you're digging shallow holes. So stop, take your time. What's one thing I'm doing right now? Focus on it. And here's a tip that you could do. Before you sit down and eat a meal, I want you to take a minute to bless it. Take a minute. Like, put your timer on. 5 seconds is gonna feel like an eternity. Good. Stop. 60 segundos, man. Watch my see my Spanish, right?
Looking good, man.
Yo, that's it, bro. Yeah, 60 segundos, man. All right. 60 seconds, people. Like, I'm joking here and I'm serious because, like, a lot of times I'm gonna speak for myself. I noticed that I rush to eat. Like, I'm on some kind of clock, like it's an Olympic event, and I'm getting like trying to beat the time trials. That's bullshit. Your body needs time to digest, and when you take your time and you slow down, you live an unhurried life. You're gonna find that your digestion is gonna improve, and you're gonna be free of overeating because your body's gonna have time to digest, and it's gonna get fuller faster.
Yeah.
And be optimistic, man. Brian, I appreciate what you were saying about the visualization because people are like, oh, optimistic, that woo-woo crap. It's far from being woo-woo. It's about science, man.
Yeah.
Brian, you said something, you visualize it and you feel it,
I
man.
feel like it already happened.
Wow.
Yeah. It's the most important thing. I visualize a lot of things in my life, and when I keep at it, things are manifesting right now in my life that I started visualizing 6 months ago. It's starting to come around, and I didn't think there was no way that these things were going to happen. I was like, what the fuck do I got to lose? And I started getting into it, and now it's like in the last few weeks, I'm like, things are happening. I'm like, holy shit! Like I would have never thought this.
Yeah, buddy. Yeah, buddy.
It's being consistent. That's what it breaks down.
Bro. And we're consistent because every
Mhm.
week you can come see us.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's
All right,
it.
listen, man. Let's wrap this piece up. B, any last words for the people before we wrap this piece up, man?
You know what, man? I think you said everything beautifully at the end, man. We gave things like how to Ikigai.
Yeah.
Who wrote the book? Maybe you can put
It
that up again.
is by Hector Garcia and Franz Morales.
Check out the book, man. It's a cool book, man. Read like a
Hey, listen,
chapter a day and just kind of meditate on it before you go to bed. It's really easy read.
very
Yeah,
easy read. Very
yeah.
easy read. I
It's
like
funny.
easy.
I brought that book over with me to Japan.
Yeah.
Dude, I mean, yeah. People were like, I had Japanese people on my plane. They're like, "You guy." I'm like, that's right. I'm like, I have no idea what you're saying outside of that, but you know what? They
Oh,
knew it. They knew it. They had a big smile on their face. Yeah.
bruh, it's
Cool.
so wild, man. Because like I remember when I first started reading it, it was in June, and
Hmm.
I took it down to North Carolina with me when I went to my brother's wedding, and his wife is, I think, is Korean, and I got my outside reading. Her father's like, "Ikigai." I'm like, "Yeah, fine." We
Yeah.
started talking about life
Awesome.
and purpose and
Yeah.
all. I'm like, damn, man, talk to me. Let me know.
That's it.
So bless up, man. Bless up, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.
Like, share, subscribe, man. This is like if you know somebody in your life that may be struggling with their health, or you have someone in your life that you want to live a nice, long time just like you, share this video with them. You guys watch it together, man. Leave us some comments on what some things that you're doing to help with your longevity and your long age. So,
Yeah. Teach us.
yeah, please.
Yeah.
That's what's up, man. We're all learning from each other,
That's it,
man.
man.
That's what's
That's
up.
it.
All right, everybody.
I appreciate you all. Thank you. Peace.